The Acura MDX Type S gets a refresh for the 2025 model year. And in this video, I'll cover all the changes for 2025, as well as talking about the exterior, the interior, taking it for a drive and seeing what it's like out on the road, as well as talking about the kind of fuel economy you can expect, and then the pricing and how it compares to the competition these days. So as far as the 2025 MDX Type S, well, the biggest change here on the exterior is up front there. You can see you have a brand new front end here with a very bold bumper that now has these wide open spaces there. Those intakes are very large and aggressive, and nicely amps up the look here compared to the pre-refresh version. It'll come down to personal taste whether you think it's an improvement or not, but definitely much bolder. We also have a bolder grille now with a new design in it. There's also some slightly darker headlights, although they are the same shape otherwise, and everything else is the same, but slightly darker innards there for those. You also have this new urban gray pearl color, which is really nice, and also we have some new 21-inch wheels here on the sides that look really good and really nicely show off those large Brembo brakes. Going out to the sides and the back here though, it's all the same as before, no changes there, but it continues to be a really nice looking vehicle. It didn't really need any changes. To me, it wasn't looking dated or anything. It's still very fresh, very sharp and modern, and so overall, I think they changed some really nice stuff. I personally like the front end, but I think it's a nice little evolution here to make this vehicle a little bit more modern looking and a little more aggressive. Right, for the interior of the MDX Type S, so for 2025, it gets a big change, and that is this touchscreen that we have here, and that is the largest change. There's also some more storage and a couple other minor little changes I'll get to as well. But first thing, as far as the rest of the interior, it's the same. So if you're familiar with a 2022 and newer MDX Type S, all the same space, all the same features, everything else remains the same basically. So you can save yourself some time and skip ahead to the driving if you're familiar with this interior. But I'll go over it briefly and cover those changes here for those that are curious. So first off, sitting down in these seats, you still have these wonderful 16-way seats that are memory, of course, but also, I love the adjustable bolstering, but they're heated, they're ventilated, and they have massage. And it is a very good massage, I have to say. It's not like some of these more boring, like just basically pushing in and out the lumbar support. Like this is really advanced. There's a bunch of different programs to choose from, and they're very vigorous. They're very, strong. And you can lessen the severity of it if you want, but it is a really good massage. And to me, it's really been actually a really nice thing to have this week, and fantastic seats. The steering wheel is also the same great wheel here. Has a great 9-3 grip, nice little 10 and 2 notches, and a nice flat bottom to it. It's a heated wheel. You have little paddle shifters here on the back. Works really well. The gauge cluster here is fully digital, of course, and it's a really nice gauge cluster. There's not a ton of customization to it. On the right-hand side there, that's primarily where you're going to see your main customizations, but you do have an option for another view for the gauges there if you'd like, and also when you change the drive mode selector, it will change the stuff there, and there's also an individual mode, so you can have whatever gauge display you like there all the time if you'd like, and especially those sportier modes are really fun. Surprisingly, I was going to try comfort mode, but then it gets rid of the tack completely, which I didn't like. So again, with the individual mode, you can go in and have the comfort suspension if you want the softest setting possible, have everything else be normal, and it's really great they give you that customization there. But you also have a head-up display here, which is really nice and large with the fonts, very easy to read and really nice to have there. But coming over to the center of the dashboard, the star of the show is this 12.3-inch touchscreen. And the screen itself, if you're used to other MDXs, is about 4 inches closer to the driver to, of course, facilitate those touch inputs, because it is finally a touchscreen. They finally got rid of the controller here in the MDX. It sounds like other Acuras aren't following suit just yet, aside from the Integra, which is, Honda Civic based. But this is the first, and for now, really the only outside of that Integra to have this, but it's really nice to have. So it has wireless Apple CarPlay, wireless Android Auto. Going through everything is really nice and snappy. It's really quick, and it's pretty easy to reach as well. But my one big gripe with it is that there is no Sirius XM satellite radio. And Honda and Acura have been doing this in all of these Google-based systems. I complained about this in the Civic, in the Accord, and now we have it here in this, where I don't know why they got rid of Sirius XM. There's other vehicles with Google built in that do have that functionality, so it's a choice that Honda and Acura made for some reason. I don't know why. I've been told that if you run CarPlay or Android Auto and have the Sirius XM app, you can then stream it through there, but that is dependent on an internet connection versus satellite radio being a little more reliable, as long as it has the view of the sky there. And so don't love that, and if you're a fan of SiriusXM, that might be almost a deal breaker for some people. But other than that, really great system, and it's hooked up to this new Bang & Olufsen stereo as well. So previously you had an ELS Studio 3D kind of stereo, which also was fantastic. I had zero complaints previously with the stereo. This one is just as good. It does no harm. To me, it doesn't move the ball forward either. It's very good though. So as standard in MDXs, you'll get a 19 speaker, 1,474 watt stereo. But here in the Type S version, you get a 31 speaker, 1,757 watt stereo. Speakers in the ceiling there and all over the place. And it's a very good stereo though. I mean, listening to all of my favorite music, whether it's orchestral stuff or, just really awesome, beats or whatever the case might be, it sounds fantastic regardless of the genre, and it is so good. So I mean, cars like this are really my sweet spot, where fantastic stereo, comfortable massaging seats, nice ride, good power. These ultimate Grand Tours like this are really just, just really nice to have and live with on a daily basis. So anyway, but yeah, that's the screen. Now coming down, all the other controls are thankfully all retained from the, pre-refresh MDX. That means we have physical buttons, very easy and logically arranged. You still have the push buttons here for your shifter controls. You still have a volume knob and your little rocker switch here. But you'll see the center console area is opened up some more. So you now have a wider area here for whatever you want to put in the front here. And then this really wide wireless charging pad, which actually does work very well. It's nicely rubberized, has the little brackets, and doesn't seem to be too picky with where you put your phone on there. So thankfully, I just, flopping my phone on there and tossing it there casually, it usually picked up a charge really well and started to, do that pretty effectively. So, and that's rare. I mean, even these days, a lot of companies struggle with doing a good wireless charging pad. And so this is a notable thing. They actually did that very well. You also have two cup holders there, and also the center armrest, which you see has two levels. The top level here, very shallow, but then that lower level does have your two USB-C jacks. And the whole thing is nice and softly padded as well. I also love the soft padding you have down here by your knees. Very nice and luxurious there. And the wood trim on the doors and all that. It all just, is very nice and impressive. Feels well worth this vehicle's $76,000 price tag. But moving on to the second row here, it's a good amount of space. It's a mid-size three-row crossover, so no surprises here. Plenty of space in the back there. They have their own climate controls back there, their own heated seats, a beautiful panoramic moonroof to look out of. And I also love the third row in these. I mean, it's not a super big third row, and now there are some newer competitors that I think do the third row sporty SUV thing a little bit better from a space standpoint. I'll get more into that later, but I love still that it's so easy to get back there. Just a push button either on the bottom, which makes it easy for kids, or on the seat back there. Press that, it automatically flings itself forward. You get right into that third row. Now it's tight. I'm 5'9". Me sitting with the second row seats pushed all the way back, I really can't fit comfortably. Honestly, I'm really squished back there. But if the second row occupants have a little bit of wiggle room there, they can move that seat up a little bit, then that third row does become usable for adults, and there's enough headroom as well. And there's even cup holders and USB-A jacks back there, interestingly. But, really nice and usable third row. And the cargo space is also nice and, typical three-row crossover here. Pretty wide, pretty limited amount of length if you actually want to use that third row. But if you want to flip it down, you'll of course have plenty of space. There's a power outlet back there, and also a cubby beneath the floor, which gives you a little bit of extra space too. But really well done as far as that goes as well for something this size. And so overall, the MDX interior, again, is really great, and it just gets better for 2025 unless you are an avid Sirius XM listener, in which case, again, hopefully the app will still be good enough. But yeah, really still just love this interior. But let's start up and go for a drive. So the MDX Type S does have the nice Acura key with the Type S logo and some metal here on the sides. A nice, heavy, substantial feeling key. A very nice key, and so I really like it. But of course it is keyless access, keyless entry, and push button start. So you just leave the key in your pocket, hit the engine start button here, and it starts right up, gives you some nice chimes there. All right, so setting off here in the MDX Type S. So the first things you notice about this vehicle, well, the first thing that I noticed is something that hasn't changed since 2022, unfortunately, is the throttle response and the brake response are the first things that I noticed. So as far as throttle response, the thing that I noticed is that there is still a hesitation sometimes, where I think it's a thinking period where it's trying to figure out whether it wants to start in first or second, or just some kind of lag there where it doesn't happen in sport mode really, but in the normal mode, you know, there's even right there, like just, you know, when you do a full stop, there's just a beat before it's like, okay, do you actually want to go or not? And it just, you know, gives you a pause, a beat where, you know, like if someone waves you on at a stop sign, you hit the gas and you're waiting a second, then it's like you're actually going, but like it confuses people because they're like, are you going or are you not? I don't like lag, so that's annoying. And then the brakes are the other opposite end of the spectrum where they really are touchy. They really clamp down hard. And I mean, it's a sporty vehicle. I get it. I guess they wanted to make it feel very aggressive, but it took a little while to get smooth with. Now, after having driven this vehicle over a week now, you know, I am more comfortable and I can be pretty reliably smooth with the brakes, but it took me a few days to get used to that. And so if you test drive one of these, you know, I wouldn't let that be a deal breaker, but if you hop in one of these for the first time and you're like, man, these brakes are wanting to put me through the windshield, like, you know, just trust me, you can, I think at least most people can get used to it over a few days of driving. And, you know, once you get some more seat time, you will recalibrate your foot to the more delicate responses, or the more delicate inputs you need to have as a result of the responses of the brake pedal here. But the throttle is something I still have yet to get used to, because it's still just always like not doing exactly what I want it to do. And otherwise, though, one nice thing for 2025 is that they did say that they reduced noise by about 10%, and they did that thanks to having new fender liners, as well as more insulation and even laminated glass for these second row doors. And so, you know, a little quieter, that's certainly appreciated in a vehicle that's, again, as expensive as this is. Again, from my memory, a few years back in an MDX Type S, this isn't wildly quieter, but, you know, if you're coming out of the old one going straight into the new one, you know, you may actually appreciate, you know, that small little difference there for sure. And otherwise, though, I mean, it's a phenomenal vehicle from a daily driver standpoint. You know, having this air suspension, it's an adaptive air suspension. It really can be as soft or as firm as you'd like, but even in its stiffest mode, it's really not bad, honestly. But, you know, especially that comfort mode is nice and floaty. And, you know, you can tell that even though this is a Type S, that badge means different things depending on which vehicle you're in these days from Acura. And in the Integra Type S, it's obviously very aggressive. In this, you know, it kind of is just a nice GT kind of vehicle and not overboard with the suspension or anything. But I'm going to go ahead and put it up into the Sport Plus mode, which you have to turn and hold the knob here to give you that full sport mode. It does actually lower down the air suspension too, so it is now doing that. And you can really feel it working with it, rocking the vehicle back and forth slightly to get you to that lower position. Then once you are in that lower position here, it has achieved that now. There's a little display on the gauge cluster here, and then we can accelerate. So let's turn onto this back road and see how it does. Here we go. Okay, nice and responsive. Very good. And that is an area that they improved these, because in past Acura Type S's, I complained about this in the TLX and in the MDX in the past, it was kind of a slow lag there in Sport Plus mode. Now, thankfully, it is nice and responsive off the line there, which is great. And get a little bit of extra sound piped in here in Sport Plus mode, along with the, you know, sportier steering feel and throttle response. But you know, it's still mechanically unchanged here. So we have a turbocharged V6 engine, 3-liter V6. It does 355 horsepower, 354 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 is 5.5 seconds in these, and you know, it's a lot of punch. Now, it's not the fastest out there these days. There's even some other competitors I'll talk about that do actually overperform this for less money. But it's a good amount of power. I think it'd be nice to get closer to 400 or have something, you know, a little bit punchier, because this is, you know, a heavy vehicle. These weigh, like, I think 4,776 pounds. You know, it's a little weighty. So, you know, it's quick, it's good response, but, you know, Type S is more like an M40i version or something like that compared to a BMW. It's not, you know, a full-blown aggressive performance model. So as long as your expectations are set properly, you know, I mean, it's fine. I really would like to see more power out of these, though, just to kind of one up, you know, a lot of the competitors a little bit better. But regardless, like I said, it should be fine for most, I think. And, you know, it is a good amount of punch. You'll never feel like it's too slow, but it's not going to take your breath away, I don't think, either, honestly. Yeah, you know, so now we're on this little bit of a rougher road, which usually generates some more road noise here. And you hear it, but it is really quiet in here. And so, again, they really focus on this being a luxurious, it's the top of their lineup here, really luxurious kind of vehicle, and it does all that very, very well. But we're cutting some corners here that I always take, and let's see how the MDX Type S handles. Now, they say there are no suspension changes for 2025, but I have been feeling like this is a little more competent than I remember it being in 2022. Yeah, because the pre-refresh to me felt a little floaty through this and felt like it was not as sporty as I wanted it to be, honestly. Maybe it's just me recalibrating my brain in the past few years to just the other competitors and other vehicles out there like this, but to me the body motions feel a little better controlled than before, and I'm not sure if between 2022 and 2025 maybe they did a suspension tweak along the way. I don't recall, but regardless, it's pretty good handling, for something that, again, still is up high, still does have an air suspension, and is, comfort based and focused here. This is actually totally fine to me, and I have no complaints with the handling here. It's, again, for a vehicle like this, going into it with a proper context, I think it's very good. So again, yeah, we have the adaptive air suspension here in this. We have 275 wide tires all around. They're Continental cross contact tires here, and you have it all slowed down by Brembo 4-piston calipers in the front. I think the rear brakes are, just kind of about the same as any other MDX, but, beefer brakes up front there for sure. And, it all feels pretty well rounded. I have no complaints really with the handling. It handles itself really well. And again, this isn't, a vehicle for corner carvers, I don't think. Obviously, it is a large three-row crossover, so I won't get into handling a whole lot here in this. I think that's, again, if you can spare the space, I think TLX Type S, for example, handles better and is more dynamic, but, this is just the price you pay for an SUV. So, but it's still a really fun time, and it's still very competent. There have been a couple of times here this week where I actually have been in a little bit of a hurry. I've been hustling in this vehicle a little bit here, and it kept up with me really well. And I was actually impressed with, like, the grip level, even just going around, like, tight on-ramps and off-ramps on the highway and stuff. This thing can keep up a really good pace. The last little thing to mention, though, about the suspension is that we do have a torque vectoring all-wheel drive system, which really helps as well. And it's a true torque vectoring system. Acura really likes to brag about that, and for good reason, because a lot of others, even high-end vehicles, still use a brake-based thing. And this is true engine torque. It can deliver about 70% of the available torque to the rear there. And, it really gives it a dynamic feeling. And so, that's just, it's notable that it's actually overdriving those inside wheels there to, give you that torque vectoring kind of sensation. And, it does it very, very well. Again, I'll get to the competitor comparisons a little bit later, but, it is still held back by its layout. And, one of the recent competitors that came out that, in my opinion, still competes on the same level, actually, is the Mazda CX-90 now, with the Turbo S version of that, having a longitudinal straight 6 turbo engine, having a rear-wheel drive based all-wheel drive platform. If I were to compare these two, based on, again, my pretty clear memory, I've spent a lot of time in the Mazdas over the past year here, I think they feel a little more composed and just inherently more stable and competent. This, still feels like it's trying to manage itself a little bit more than the Mazda, which I feel like is just naturally going through things without as much drama and fuss. But both are really good. Definitely worth a test drive of both if you are someone who wants, good handling through a crossover. But I won't get into that too much because I'm sure that's a very small niche of people. But now we're out on the highway here in the MDX Type S, and there are quite a few improvements for 2025 in that regard. So there's a bunch of new safety stuff. They now call it Acura Watch 360, and it now has more advanced radar up front and in the back with corner radars. We have more advanced high-resolution cameras to do more intelligent processing and recognition. And so because of that, we now have, like, for example, automatic intersection braking, so the rear cross or the front cross traffic alert, as well as now, still having the rear cross traffic alert. We still have all that, and it also can detect things better, and it's smoother, they say, for all MDXs, with having the adaptive cruise control be a little smoother. It now will do automatic braking around corners and various other things here. So all very good as far as that's concerned. And as we're going around this corner here right now, so the road lines are kind of tricky with the way the sun's glaring on them. We do have a dump truck next to us here, so I'm going to be very careful with it. But I do have the lane keep assist system on here, and adaptive cruise is doing a really good job, though. I mean, the Acura and Honda systems typically have been very good in my opinion, and so no surprises here, but great. We have extra good sensing here. And also one nice other new thing for 2025 is that now the wheel has capacitive touch sensors instead of the old torque sensing. So previously you had to kind of, show that there's a little bit of weight on the wheel for it to know your hands are on the wheel. Now it can just sense, the grip of your hands without you needing to tug on it in order for it to know that your hands are on the wheel, because of course this is still a hands-on system and it wants to make sure your hands are there at all times. So this now is just a little more intelligent with the way that it senses that. But going around another gentle corner here on the highway, and yeah, it's doing a really good job here. And the other really cool thing, which is probably more of a party trick than it is an actual useful feature, but it does have auto lane change assist. And so what that does is, again, hands still have to be on the wheel, but you can tap the turn signal stalk to initiate a lane change. It will check to make sure it's safe to do so, and then it will do the lane change for you. But again, your hands are still on the wheel. So the amount of, since your hands still have to be on the wheel and you still have to hit the turn signal stalk, to me that doesn't save you any time or any work. And so I guess it's a fun extra thing to list on your list of features that this thing can do. But I think, auto lane changes are kind of silly until we, get to a hands-free system like you see in some of the other vehicles out there, like the Cadillacs and the GM vehicles with Super Cruise, the Ford and Lincoln with their Blue Cruise. Those types of vehicles doing that, that is a lot more helpful. But in this, not too helpful. But again, just a really good adaptive cruise system, and still very relaxing to cruise down the road here, having the vehicle do those micro corrections for you. That's all really nice, and just makes this a really nice highway cruiser, of course. And otherwise, I believe it was the case already back in 2022 when these debuted, but because this is, of course, a top-of-the-line Acura, everything else is standard. So any safety equipment, any feature you were curious about, it's all standard, it's all here and accounted for. So, no worries about having to select an option box for the right driver assistance tech, which some of the Germans especially still make you do. And in this, there's no, games with ordering or searching something on the lot. All of these come with all the stuff, and that's really nice. And also, speaking of that, trim structure, these all the MDXs now are advanced trims. It used to be that there was, two different trims, one lower and one higher. Now all MDXs are fully loaded. They all come with everything. There's really no options aside from the color you pick. So that keeps it nice and simple, but if you're someone who didn't need every luxury before and you just wanted the performance, unfortunately you're out of luck now. You're going to have to, get everything or nothing here with the MDX Type S for 2025. Fuel economy in the MDX Type S is rated at 17 mpg in the city, 21 on the highway, and 19 combined. That's not great, considering the amount of performance is higher, but it's not that high. But these things still drink gas pretty well. And in my driving here, I've been driving this vehicle for about 138 miles here, and I'd say it was close to a 50-50 split, not quite combined, but I did do a decent amount of highway driving here. And anyway, my fuel economy average here has been 17.6 mpg. So, not too bad. I am doing above the city rating, but again, I did do a lot of highway, so to me, that's not a crazy accomplishment. It would have been nice to see, maybe a little closer to 19, but we are right on the money here pretty much for what I was expecting. I typically do get 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating in a lot of vehicles, so, getting 17.5 here, I'm pretty good with that. But it would be cool to see some type of hybridization, which one of the competitors does offer. And the last thing to mention here is the pricing and how it does compare to those competitors. So as far as pricing goes, like I said, just one trim, all fully loaded here. All of them are advances now for 25. As that means the starting price, including destination, now comes out to $76,300. This one has this Urban Gray Pearl, which is an extra $600. So this one's $76,900. But, again, that's basically it. So that's about as loaded as these can get. And so, at that price point, it has climbed a lot. When these first debuted in 2022, I think they were like 65 or so. We've gone up basically like 10 grand. Again, inflation has done its thing, and, it's just, kind of par for the course with everything out there these days. But, it is a little bit more expensive now. But if you're looking to buy an MDX Type S or any vehicle, you should definitely head to mattmoranmotoring.com, where you can click on new car quotes and get dealer invoice pricing for this vehicle, as well as getting connected with local dealers in your area to get the best price, the best deal on one of these, and check one of these out in person. There's going to be a link in the description, as well as a pinned comment in the comment section there with a link to head right over there and check out the pricing for these for yourself. But as far as how this compares to the competitors, so you know, I'd say as far as traditional luxury stuff goes, the Acura maintains its position of kind of giving you the value play here of coming in a little bit less than, for example, like I think the closest German competitor is going to be the Audi Q7 55, which also uses, you know, very similar kind of power plant, very similar amounts of power. Performance is very much the same. Space is pretty much the same. It even has massaging seats, so very similar on feature content, just a little bit of a smaller screen in that. But those Audis are, you know, not cheap these days. I think it's about $87,000 for that Q7 that's comparable to this. So I mean, we're talking that's, you know, another 11 grand on top of this, which already got it more expensive on its own. So I mean, that's why, again, this is a very strong value play. And then as far as, like, I think one other really interesting competitor that's new for MDX here is the Lexus TX 500H, which is one of the top versions of the TX, and that is a hybrid performance thing that even has four-wheel steering but also has adaptive dampers. Ride isn't quite as smooth as this, but that does 366 horsepower, like 406 pound-feet of torque, so that gives you a little more punch. The TX also gives you more space, so if you are looking for a true usable everyday three-row performance crossover, TX does that better. More cargo space, even if you are just wanting a really large, you know, two-row. TX, certainly, it's a bigger, more bloated vehicle, though, for sure. It does not handle as well as this, in my opinion. It's not that far off, honestly, though, just even with its size, but it is just a bigger vehicle. But, you know, if you want a performance sporty three-row that, you know, is just a little more wholehearted in the three-row component of that, you know, I think that kind of does things a little bit better. And again, it's a hybrid. Now, it's a performance hybrid. There is really not a lot of focus on fuel economy in that, so don't expect to get wildly better fuel economy than this, but, you know, I think you should be able to crack into the 20s at least, you know, consistently in those. So a little bit of extra efficiency there in that if you are looking for something that's a little more fuel efficient. But the biggest competitor to this, which I think really should make you stop and pause, is the Mazda CX-90, the Turbo S version in particular that competes with this, because that does 340 horsepower, so a little less, you know, 15 less horsepower than this, but 369 pound-feet of torque. And so more torque than this, and there's also a plug-in hybrid version which actually does the same amount of torque and just a tiny bit less horsepower. But, you know, you have a plug-in hybrid which is more advanced, very responsive with that electrified powertrain, a really cool option as well. But especially the Turbo S version really can get loaded up to even have nicer equipment than this. The Turbo S has ventilated second row seats. You have really nice leather. Now, you don't have massage in that, so that is the one downgrade compared to this. But the Mazda is very premium feeling, has, you know, the same screen sizes. I think actually has more metal, and in some cases, actually, I think in the center area here is a little more premium feeling, honestly, than the MDX. And you can get a fully loaded, you know, CX-90 Turbo S with everything in it for like $58,500. And so, I mean, not only are you coming in, you know, 10 grand under what an MDX Type S used to cost, but you're coming in, you know, almost $20,000 less. Same power. And again, you have what I think is a superior platform, a front engine, rear-wheel drive based platform that does have all-wheel drive as standard, but, you know, it has that rear bias and that, you know, better balance. You have a longitudinal engine. It's a straight six turbo engine for Mazda. They're 6-speed automatic. To me, it does just as good of a job with the 2025 revisions. They did tweak it. 2024 was a little rough with the transmission in those. 2025, they tweaked it, made it a lot better. I have no complaints with the transmission anymore in that car. And so I love the massage in this. I love this, you know, it does have a really impressive stereo. You do get a really good stereo also, though, in the Mazda, so, you know, not really much of a downgrade. But, you know, is that, you know, I mean, $20,000 really, I mean, maybe 18 or whatever, but is this $18,000 better than that? No, it's not. And that's the biggest problem. Mazda really brought their A game with CX-90, and, you know, sure, if an Acura badge is more prestigious to you than a Mazda one, I can understand. Acura is, you know, in that traditional luxury grouping. But, you know, again, this is very premium feeling. But again, that Mazda really is now, I think, properly in that entry-level premium kind of category as well. And so, yeah, I think that's that. Again, if Mazda maybe half-baked it and they've, you know, made it, you know, not as impressive with the layout and stuff, I'd say this is still superior if they were on level footing. But the fact that this has, in my opinion, that worser platform is why I think the Mazda, you know, wins that comparison. If the Mazda is a deal breaker for a variety of reasons, I mean, you know, I don't know why you would, you know, not want to go for that, but if you're not into the Mazda, the Acura is still great. It's a solid runner-up in my opinion. I think, you know, because I don't need a giant third row, I think I would take this over the TX, again, which also does give you a little bit of a savings. I would take it over all the Germans, so I think that's a no-brainer, and I think, again, this is a really solid value. You know, and so that's really where I follow on this. It's a solid second place in my mind, and a very fun vehicle. I absolutely love it. Yeah, Mazda for 20 grand less all day long. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the MDX Type S. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Acura for providing me here with the 2025 MDX Type S to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.